Let's start here. Most people think disrespect is something you argue away. They think if they just find the right words, the right tone, the right explanation, the other person will suddenly wake up and realize your value. But disrespect doesn't survive because of misunderstanding. It survives because of permission. That's uncomfortable to hear because permission feels like blame. And that's not what this is. This is about awareness. There is a difference between being responsible for someone's behavior and being responsible for what you allow to continue. When someone interrupts you repeatedly, dismisses your opinion, cancels on you last minute, jokes at your expense, or speaks to you in a tone they would never use with someone they fear losing, that behavior is data. It's information. And what that information is often telling you is simple. There is no consequence here. Human behavior is shaped by reinforcement. What gets rewarded gets repeated. What gets tolerated becomes the norm. This isn't motivational language. It's psychology. If someone crosses a line and nothing changes, they learn that the line wasn't real. And this is where many strong, capable, intelligent people sabotage themselves. They confuse patience with self-abandonment. They confuse understanding with submission. They believe that staying calm means staying silent. It doesn't. Calm is powerful. Silence can be strategic, but neither should come at the expense of your standards. You don't teach people how to respect you by explaining why you deserve respect. You teach people how to respect you by what changes when they don't. That's the shift. Stop negotiating your worth. Start enforcing your boundaries. Notice the difference between those two postures. Negotiating your worth sounds like this. I just feel like when you say that, it kind of makes me feel undervalued. And I'd appreciate if maybe next time you could you're asking for approval, to be treated properly. Enforcing a boundary sounds different. Don't speak to me like that. If that happens again, I'm stepping away. I'm not available for that. No theatrics, no long speeches, no emotional escalation, just clarity. Clarity is not aggression, it's alignment. It is the outward expression of an inward decision. I know what I will and will not accept. And here's the philosophical core of this. Dignity is not something you demand from others. It's something you demonstrate through choice. You cannot control whether someone respects you, but you can absolutely control their access to you. Access is the leverage. People treat access casually because they don't realize it's valuable. Your time, your attention, your emotional energy, your presence, these are limited resources. When you continue giving them to someone who mishandles them, you are sending a message, even if you don't intend to. You're saying, this is acceptable, and most of the time, the other person believes you. Disrespectful behavior is often a test, not always conscious, but a test nonetheless. A small comment, a subtle jab, a dismissed opinion. They are watching what happens next. Do you laugh it off? Do you over-explain? Do you shrink? Do you get loud and lose control? Or do you calmly hold the line? Because calm boundaries are deeply unsettling to someone who benefits from your flexibility. When you say, no, that doesn't work for me, without anger, without apology, without justification, you are communicating something powerful. I am not here to be managed. I am here to be respected. And here's where many people struggle. They think setting boundaries will push people away. Sometimes it will. But you have to ask yourself a better question. If enforcing my standard makes someone leave, were they benefiting from crossing it? Healthy people adjust. Manipulative people resist. Entitled people get offended. That reaction is diagnostic. It tells you who you're dealing with. You are not responsible for making everyone comfortable with your standards. You are responsible for having them. There is also a quiet fear beneath all of this. The fear of being seen as difficult. The fear of being labeled sensitive, dramatic, too much. And so people dilute themselves, they soften their edges, they tolerate small acts of disrespect to avoid larger conflict. But small acts compound. Every time you let something slide that violates your values, you chip away at your own self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Once you stop trusting yourself to protect your own dignity, your posture changes. Your voice changes. Your presence changes. You begin to negotiate not just your boundaries, but your identity. And that's too high a price. Enforcing boundaries does not require anger. It requires decision. You decide that being liked is not more important than being respected. You decide that temporary discomfort is not more painful than long-term resentment. You decide that clarity now prevents chaos later. And when you make that decision internally, something shifts externally. Your tone sharpens, your words shorten, your posture steadies. You stop over-explaining because you no longer feel the need to justify your existence. That's authority. Not dominance, not intimidation, authority. Authority is self-respect expressed consistently. There will be moments when your voice shakes. There will be moments when you second-guess yourself. That's normal. Courage is not the absence of discomfort. It is action in spite of it. The first time you say that's not acceptable, it might feel unnatural. The second time, it feels stronger. The third time, it becomes part of who you are. And people notice, because when you stop negotiating your worth, you stop attracting those who rely on you doubting it. Handling people who don't respect you is not about winning arguments. It's about ending patterns. It's about understanding that respect is less about what you say and more about what you enforce. You need to decide what happens when they don't. And that decision, quiet, firm, unwavering, is where your power begins. If you want respect, stop explaining why you deserve it. Start acting like it's already required. Now, once you've made the decision to stop negotiating your worth and start enforcing your boundaries, there's another layer to this that's just as important. You have to detach emotionally. Because here's the truth. If someone doesn't respect you and you absorb that behavior as a wound every single time, you will exhaust yourself trying to defend your dignity. Disrespect feels personal. It hits the ego. It triggers old insecurities. It reopens past experiences where you felt dismissed, overlooked, underestimated, and if you're not careful, you'll start responding not just to what's happening in front of you, but to everything it reminds you of. That's when you lose leverage. Emotional reactivity gives other people control over your internal state. If they can provoke you, they can position you. If they can trigger you, they can steer you. Detachment is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. There's a difference. Coldness says, I don't care. Clarity says, I see exactly what this is. When someone disrespects you, the immature instinct is to ask, why would they treat me like that? What did I do wrong? How do I fix this? But that question assumes the behavior is about you. Often it's not. Disrespect is frequently projection. Insecure people belittle because elevating others threatens them. Entitled people interrupt because they believe their voice matters more. Manipulative people test limits because they're scanning for weaknesses. Unresolved people provoke because chaos feels familiar. When you detach emotionally, you stop internalizing their dysfunction. Instead of absorbing the hit, you analyze the pattern. You begin asking a better question. What do this behavior reveal? That shift moves you from participant to observer. And observation is powerful. When you observe instead of react, you create space between stimulus and response. And that space is choice. And choice is where self-respect lives. Most conflicts escalate because two egos collide. One person disrespects, the other person reacts emotionally. The first person escalates, the second person defends harder. Now it's no longer about respect, it's about winning. But you don't need to win every exchange to maintain your dignity. Sometimes the strongest position is restraint. Silence can be strategic. Not the silence of suppression, but the silence of evaluation. When someone throws a subtle jab, you don't have to counterpunch immediately. You can pause. You can hold eye contact. You can let the weight of their words sit in the air long enough for them to feel it. Calm observation unsettles people who expect emotional chaos. Because many disrespectful individuals feed off reaction. They rely on your defensiveness to validate their behavior. When you refuse to perform emotionally, you interrupt the script. You are no longer predictable. And unpredictability shifts power. There's also something deeply philosophical here. Not everyone deserves access to your emotional depth. Think about that. Your emotions are not public property. They are intimate responses tied to your values, your experiences, your history. When you react intensely to someone who has not earned proximity to that part of you, you are granting them influence they haven't qualified for. Detachment is selective access. It's deciding that not every comment deserves a rebuttal. Not every tone deserves correction. Not every provocation deserves engagement. Some behavior deserves distance. And distance is not weakness. Distance is discernment. You begin to recognize that Somo, Ne, who consistently disrespects you, is offering information about their capacity, their maturity, their emotional range. When you stop personalizing their limitations, you stop over-functioning in the relationship. You stop trying to educate someone who refuses to learn. You stop over-explaining to someone committed to misunderstanding. You stop performing for someone who benefits from your insecurity. That's freedom. And here's what's interesting. Emotional detachment often increases your influence. Why? Because people instinctively respect those who regulate themselves. Emotional control signals strength. It signals that you are not easily shaken. That doesn't mean you suppress feelings. It means you process them privately before responding.